I think most entrepreneurs nowadays they just try to take something and then once that fails, they think like, hey, it's not gonna work. Nothing's gonna work. Nothing's gonna work. You just have to.
Shenal Vanderwall began his career early by leading an engineering team at High Energy Media, where he developed tech products that served over 1 million users. He later led several other tech companies before founding his current company, Meedly. Meedly aims to streamline the booking process within organizations, especially for employees across multiple time zones. Well, Shenal, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate you joining us. To kind of dive right into this, could you introduce how you became a part of High Energy Media that allowed you to end up servicing 1 million users?
Hey, Z, thanks for having me here. We've been talking about this for like months, so glad to be here on your podcast. And congratulations on your success so far. So, talking about High Energy Media, we've been there for like 8 years. We primarily work on fitness-based products for the last 8 years. Flagship product was there for like a product called Fitness Plane, primarily designed to help personal trainers sort of come online, take their mobile phone easily, start marketing their content and find users who could be their paying customer in the end of the day. So that was the idea behind it. We built a network of influencers who could support people, and then we sort of grow the company to use somewhere close. So this time I was leaving it, we had 1.8 million users on the platform as registered users, and active, and 200,000 plus page views per day. So company was really good. That's what we did.
You kind of flew through that. So because I think the audience would like to know, when did you start? Like, when did you join High Energy Media, and what allowed y'all to grow so much? Because obviously starting a company, at the beginning stages and then scaling it's very difficult. So how did you lead the team in through that process?
So the time I was joining High Energy Media, the company existed already. They had the product, they had everything in place. But the problem was that they had nobody to sort of go forward and develop the product further and dedicate some time, so that way they could accelerate the process. So one of my good friends, the time I started my very first company back in 2012, called Clownster, it failed. Company failed. But that was like the first.
It's a learning experience.
It's a
You
learning
have to fail to
experience,
learn.
of course.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
company failed, but the time I was doing it, I was so dedicated into the languages and understanding how programming dynamics works. So I was in my bedroom and then tried to sort of figure out how I could actually implement some languages, sort of trying to build it back in 2010, 2011, 12 each time. So first company failed. Lucky enough, learn a little bit of marketing. So understood the dynamics of the networking effect. We dived into sort of connecting to people. Met my good friend Dr. Cotton back in that time. He was like, hey Chanel, you're doing it really good, why don't we just partner up with the other fella who's already working on this product, trying to scale it. Joined as a software engineer. Then that's where we actually started hitting the milestones. We worked on implementing different tools, different other features. We went into mobile application development. We were the very first few people who utilized Titanium web development for sort of implement a mobile application using that framework. Now Titanium application is actually out of the development world, right? Nobody's using that. We had to program our own module. For example, Google didn't have a module written for map sourcing in Titanium, so we write them themselves. So we sort of understood all those tiny things. That's where we began the process. So first company failed. Joined High Energy Media back in that time. It's just the Atlanta-based software company. That's sort of like the way we started it.
Well, from that software failure, I think a lot of people, when they have a failure, they want to give up. So what gave you that motivation to be like, okay, I learned my lessons from here, and now I'm gonna go out and make something happen? How did you get that confidence?
That's funny enough when you say it. Like, it's just never like, hey, we are done at this point. We're generating money. It was never that case. For us, for me personally, it was like my personal goals finally people trying to use whatever I built in, and I was building an audience who were ready to use it, like, so that was like the inspiration behind me sort of trying to understand, hey, if I build more and more tools, this gives me the opportunity to sort of optimize how I'm going to build something that could be used by maybe 2 to 3 million people back in sometimes later on. So the time I remember when we were starting this application called Laundry Lift. It was a pretty big idea, but a client came to us with hey, I have money. I just retired and I want to start an application. And I'm thinking, in my neighborhood, nobody picks up laundry. So could you guys build something? So we quickly came up with this idea, prototyped it. So those tiny things were like the inspiration behind who I am today, because we were a very tiny group of people trying to build something for a specific niche. We were not going after everything. We were just very focused on one or two things back in that time. We dedicated that time to sort of understand from there what is the next option for us, like. And personally, me being in Sri Lanka and all other people working in state and one-on-one meetings every single day. So I worked from like 1 or 2 o'clock in my time till the next day 5 o'clock morning. So it's like a routine for me, and I'm pretty much awake. So my parents, we were young, we were like kids, and I remember my mom was, hey, what time are you going to sleep? The time I wake, you're working, right? And the time I'm sleeping, you're working. So it just doesn't work, like, even those challenges. So this has been the journey for us. So it was never sort of like enough a thing. It was for us, basically for me, it was a good learning curve.
It's an ongoing process. It's not like you're chasing this end goal, laying on the beach. I mean, maybe one day, right? Laying on the beach, drinking cocktail, but it's that ongoing process of learning. One thing that I've kind of seen a common theme from just the interviews I've had over these last couple months is that all these entrepreneurs, they start a company that solves, like you said, a really niche problem, and then they go for kind of a really big problem. So like you said, you solved this very small niche problem, and now Meedly, which we're about to get into, is a very large company with a very large problem. But because you've built that experience and you've had that, you've been through a successful company, you've failed through a company, like you've done all the steps, and then now to be like, let's take on the world, basically. It's cool.
It's just use that, and it's like the snowball effect, right? You just start from somewhere, just keep growing. You sort of get into that taste, hey, something is working, right? Something's finally working. So that's something, I think most entrepreneurs, like nowadays, they just try to take something, and then once that fails, they think like, hey, it's not gonna work. Nothing's gonna work. Nothing's gonna work. You just have to keep pushing through. Just have to identify specific niche within a niche. That's how you sort of try to push your thing and say, hey, I'm good at this, and would you be interested to try my thing out over the other thing, right?
And you would probably agree, it's always 2 step forwards and 1 step back too. It's never straight up no problems. Yeah. So with your level, I have a lot of people in my community that are software engineers by heart, and they're, through this journey that you were on early in your career. Where can a new developer go today to really learn a skill set like yours? You've had all these experiences. What would you recommend to a new developer to get experience?
Probably you would come to the same question sometimes later in this conversation as well. But the time when we started back in 2010, 2012, languages were very basic. They were like very limited within everything we were doing. It was a barrier for us to distribute something, because most bigger companies had the financial support to sort of afford infrastructure to maintain something like Java, .NET. They had that, but for a tiny startup, we started from scratch. We were limited with everything. So the time I went into sort of cater customers in our previous company, they were doing the same thing. What they were doing, basically reinventing the whole wheel for each and every client, right? So we were using PHP, And the language is pretty simple to use, but the problem is that you get one customer today and someone in New York trying to create an API from scratch, use the same DB. Now PHP 5 becomes 6, version 8, version 9 likewise, and you're pretty much trying to recreate the whole thing. So the new developer comes in, they don't really have a way to plug in, because your engineers in the other hand are in 10 to 20 different frameworks built by themselves. This is where I implemented Linio, which is like a framework for developers, and it integrates very well with PHP. You just simply connect your database, and you just connect your API frameworks to it, and then you connect your front end to it. So it's just very simple. What we did not know, Laravel was on the play. They had started it earlier than to us, but we just did it anyway. We didn't really care about it, and that framework was a tool used in many projects that we develop internally, also externally. Even the sorry. So even the first version of Meetly, I did it in Blinio, like 2 years, 3 years back in. And so for you to learn something new, all you need is just internet connection. That's all what you would need. Someone who has the passion to it, obviously they're going to sort of try it out, try things out, figure out what works for them, what does not. What's more important, you need to find someone who has the same passion just like you, so that way you're not doing 10 to 20 different things. You're pretty much focused on going after one thing. So that's about that.
Yeah, so you say just finding a partner that you can kind of lean on with the same passion and goals as you said has really, really helped you think early?
I would really agree with that, but I would say more than a partner, you need someone who could financially remunerate you for whatever you are doing. That's where you really develop the taste. I think what is leading most internet, sort of content, is that people, start typing things like the things that they never tried before. For example, most influencers that we find on internet, and those dudes have never tried things. I just pretty much guarantee you, most dudes have not tried them, right? So they're
Yeah,
missing
don't you hate the influence out there with starting YouTube channels that hadn't done anything? I'm just kidding, referencing.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding of that. But most people have not tried, So what happens? They're misleading a community that is yet to be formed. So I think it's very important that you find something, whatever it is that you want to do. It could be tech, it could be marketing, it could be business development, it could be finance, right? So my sister is a finance, and she's a pretty good in HR, sort of thing. She understands the technology behind it. So what's really important is that you're getting some sort of financially, compensation, so that way it develops your taste, develops your inspiration, it develops hopes, so that you could wake up tomorrow and you can go back to do the same thing. But most people are not lucky enough like that, because they're going after the content that pleases them. So they are waking up to a coffee, going off into a workplace, and they are paying pretty much money just to form that idea of them. That's wrong, that's really wrong. So I think for most people, it would be where you start from simple, and most people are not patient enough. I have seen so many people who come to work into my company. We had more than 20, 30 people, and more than people working, probably around 10 to 20 interns back in the time. Something in common in everyone. They all go after the same thing. How much money can I make tomorrow? Right? The world doesn't work like that. Industry doesn't work like that. Exactly. Nothing works like that, right? What can you do so I could keep you employed tomorrow? Is the question I ask myself, right? So if you figure that out, for sure you're gonna make money tomorrow. You're gonna get your inspiration tomorrow. So if you're not working enough, so you're not really getting there.
Mhm. That's super, man. I feel like that's such a good topic to kind of go into. I want to get into your company now because we want to jump into that. But just that idea that a lot of people say, what can I get from this company rather than what can I do for the company? And in turn, if you have that mindset, I feel like over time, you're going to make a lot of money. You don't have to start a company. You don't have to do that. You can be where you want to be in life if you just be the second, third, and fourth guy on the team, but you're great at it. You know your role and you wake up every day and do it. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So going into Meedly, going into this big company that you're building, we have tons of questions on that. Before you built Meedly, every entrepreneur has this. I see this problem. I'm starting this company to solve this big problem. So, what are the current issues that you saw in the market prior to building Meedly, and really, how long have you been on this journey for?
Immediately when we started, when we were getting financial traction, back in 2 years ago, we didn't have a company, right? So immediately did not have a company where our investors could put money in. So I quickly formed the company when investors and the users who said they wanted to use the product, right? So we started the company out of a simple idea, trying to understand how people engage in online meetings. So we basically I built the interface that analyzes different parameters, and it was a cool project for me. And so I just put it out there on LinkedIn. Overnight we get like 150,000 impressions asking people every single minute if they could use it. So that's where we went into financial, take some serious business there, because we understood, basically I understood the dynamics of how business works. Like, if there's a potential opportunity and if people request it, that's the best place where you're going to form your product and company. Because if you come up with an idea and if you're so passionate about it and no one use it and no comments is given, there's no business there, right? But when your end users say, hey, this is the tool what we want to use, and if they are
You tested demand. Users told you that they wanted it from that post.
Exactly, right? So that's how you determine, okay, this is where you have to have something in place which could keep you going, and ultimately you're going to figure out your business dynamics behind it, right? So we went in. Now the company is like probably around 1 year and 8 months old, probably 2 years for the company. But we are now pretty much a corporate based solution. We are more focused on different tools that we can implement within meetings management. We are focused on data, right? Nobody's talking about meetings data. We know there is a problem where people want to access meetings data faster, but at the same time we try to solve the issues that no one's trying to solve, right? So that way we could go after the people to serve that particular niche. So recently Meetly came in with a very innovative solution, and we transformed from that engagement analytics to a entire corporate based solution over the last 8 months time. So what we're trying to do now, in most corporate businesses, when you want to set up a meeting, everybody spend time. You spend time trying to negotiate a time slot that
We
particular.
spent we spent time negotiating this one, this podcast.
I saw it, right. And we've been talking about this for the last month, I think 30 to 40 days. So this happens in business a lot of time, right? Even though calendars like Calendly, Simply Book Me, they're trying to solve it, but it's for a specific niche. They're not built for what we are built for, right? So what we're trying to do, we knew when we speak to companies, hey, there are problems. Even when we wanted to set up business meetings with bigger corporations, we had to wait like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, because the CEO is on a vacation, right? Because the PE is in vacation. So we understood the problem. So what we did recently, we developed one API where you send no messages at all. You can enter email addresses of all those participants. The API is going to find the time slots, avoiding all conflicts. It's going to show you the time slots. You click the meeting create button, right away you start the meeting. So you're basically that 2 to 3 hour lengthy process, you're just getting it done within like 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, once you agree on the date, right? So this is what these are the engaging tools we built in. So Meetly is now fully corporate-based solution. We recently, became verified application on Microsoft. Probably you might have this question to ask me like some traction, but I'm going to throw the ball out anyway. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Keep going. Yeah.
this is what we do. This is what we do.
Well, let me ask you: Is Meedly? My question is Meedly really built for like internal companies, like really large organizations, or is there also can the tool be built for other companies trying to schedule meetings with, let's say, another large company? Is it just for internal meetings, or is it for external? Maybe a salesperson reaching out to another company. Can I use Meedly to then maybe book it with a decision maker? Is that possible?
So that's pretty much the idea we're trying to get solved, right? So mainly when you want to set up meetings internally, you can get it done in like 1 hour, 2 hour. But if you have Meetly implemented properly, it comes down to 5 minutes. But the problem becomes very to a larger scale, considerable amount of time that you have to spend time to solve when you want to set up a cross-functional business meetings, for example, one business to another, because you have to map two different domains, two different time zones. If you're speaking to companies in different time zones, one could be in Europe, one could be in Canada, one could be in Australia, Asia. Different people work in different
Especially now, where remote work is even more prominent with remote work.
course, right? So this is where the problem becomes more impractical, right? So Meet solves this. So you don't really need to sort of wait any longer. Meetly can simply identify every domain. You just simply connect your domains. It works cross business, internal business, and just pretty easy to use and identify the time slots.
My question is, so let's say I had a company with one employee and I enter the email and there's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Would that allow me to book a meeting with him, or is there like permissions in place that regulates so anybody just can't, schedule a meeting with really important people?
Not really. Not really. First and foremost, you have to properly implement Meetly within your organization, and it has to be implemented, authenticated, go through the administrative process. We're not allowing anybody to just go and schedule meetings, violating all the privacy. So we're not doing that. But once you implement it, right? Let's say we have 2,000 plus companies on Meetly, and if you are just signing up for Meetly, you have access to 2,000 plus companies where you can schedule meetings. Let's say all those 2,000 companies have like 2 million, 3 million people in them working for them. You have access to 3 to 4 million people easily that you could schedule meetings.
And you basically you eliminate all the middleman processes, just that streamlining time. My next question is, who are your competitors? Like in this marketplace, are you seeing anybody that's really building the kind of system that you're building? And who are those competitors, if you could go into that?
You know, there are a few differences even though we're talking about competitors. So Calendly, Simply Book Me, Doodle, all these tools are automated scheduling tools. They work perfectly fine, and I recommend people from using it. We do not say stop that, just use them, right? But the problem is that they're not built for bigger corporations or teams, and it doesn't really come into our consideration. There's a buying process behind every corporate software, right? So if you try to really understand that parameter, most companies don't want to pay $10 to $16 per seat where they have like 2,000 employees just to get a scheduling software, right? So right, but they would be willing to pay considerable amount of money to secure the data of meetings. So Meetly is, compared to most of our competitors, we are not a scheduling tool, right? So we are a meetings management application. We centralize meetings data for different organizations. Once you connect it, your top tier management able to access the meetings data. You're able to easily share meetings data, your agendas, tasks, participation data, video conferencing data, to name it, right? So we're trying to go away from scheduling, which we are really not. But even though we provide those tools, and we try to plug them under Meetly umbrella, like, so that's how we trying to differentiate ourselves. Perfect for an individual tiny startup who want to do one-on-one sales meetings, do not quit using Calendly. That's the perfect tool. Use Simply Book Me, Doodle, all those other tools that you could find. You don't really have to go out. But you could have Meetly account if you want to do business with bigger corporations. If you're selling to B2B, if you're selling to employees with 2,000 employees, if you're managing teams in different time zones, and if you do not want to keep on sharing your links here and there, it's a one system. You do it yourself. That's the whole idea behind it. Avoiding any message being sent.
That's awesome. It's a really cool example. You're saying we're not trying to necessarily compete with those companies, but rather build a tool that enhances that experience. And for a specific person, like if you're a smaller company and you want to connect with larger companies or vice versa, then you can have that process where you don't even have to reach out. You just get on their calendar, you book a 5-minute call, 10-minute call, you have it, and maybe you provide value in some way. But you're all these back and forths. There's so many potential opportunities missed with both companies, because small companies can help large companies just the same way. So you're kind of eliminating that whole process where it's almost like an automation system.
Exactly. So we apply the automation for meetings, right? So that's like the primary goal behind everything we do. We're trying to eliminate unnecessary times being spent when setting up and managing meetings. That's
That's super cool. Let me ask you, what was the process? I saw that you came a verified application for Microsoft, which congratulations. That's a very cool thing. What was the process like becoming a verified application? And I'm guessing your team was so excited when you finally achieved that.
Of course. Before we became a verified application on Microsoft, we were earlier verified on Google. The first time when we went in with our tiny idea of engagement analytics. I mean, you can still go and find it on Google Chrome Station. We are a featured application on Google Chrome Station, right? You can just go there, and if we show all the verified badge, we are properly security compliant and all those technical terms. But recently we became a Microsoft verified application, which means to say now we are properly capable of catering to corporate based companies that utilize Microsoft services, meaning we have built Meetly complying with their protocols. For example, security, for example, data management, data transfers, and likewise, right? So we have gone into that state of tiny startup to getting massive amount of success and getting feedback from companies like them. So it is just a good milestone for us to have, and we are always happy for all the milestones we do, and more importantly, we are delivering some results at all to our investors who really believe in financially. So
Sure, that's awesome. It's just another step in the process. That's really cool. And in terms of the product itself, I want to know, like, what is the global potential for this product? Because I would like to know, like, where do you see yourself in the market, and how much of that market do you actually plan on capturing?
If you ask this question from early stage founder, they would say market is $20 million, $30 million, $100 billion. That would be the answer. I'm not going to give you that answer, right? We don't see ourselves being $100 billion, a company serving $100 billion market. We don't want to do that. We started this very simple, and next step for us always connecting more corporates as possible, as quickly as possible. Recently we signed a few partnerships allowing us to go into 400 to 600 plus corporations, right? Australia, UK, Singapore, USA, Canada. I think we also have the same things in common. How can we become a bigger? How can my investors get more, right?
So potential partnership as well. Yeah, another one. Yeah, between
exactly.
us.
but lucky enough, we have good understanding people who really believe in the work we do, and we don't have that investor push. We're not worried about how things gonna work, and we're not really worried about how much money we're gonna make tomorrow. We are more worried how many people can we connect over a period of 2 to 3 years, how many corporations can we bring together, where all businesses gonna benefit equally. For example, let's say a tiny startup trying to sell their services to a corporation company in Europe or Singapore or in Canada. How faster can Meetly be their solution for them to schedule meetings faster, so they could start generating revenue. So those are like the goals behind our vision. We're not trying to build a platform, just a platform that's serving $100 billion company. We're not that. I'm not really focused on any of that. We are more focused on how many corporation companies can we go in, and how can they enable trade between one to another, because they have a great tool called Meetly. So that is how we look at.
Ba- Basically focusing on what you control, because focusing on a dollar sign is sometimes a lot harder than just let's get 10 businesses this month or 20. You know what I mean? I feel like it's way more tangible. And I was going to ask, as you're in this beginning stages of getting these large corporations, do you see yourself targeting large corporations early, or are you really targeting the small businesses? Because I know that both can exist within the ecosystem of Meadly. Who right now are you targeting?
I mean, sure. So there's a good statement I always follow. If you have cough, you have to get treatments for cough. If you have fever, you have to get treatments for fever, right? So the problem we're trying to solve really exists within business to another business. If you're business to consumer product, if you're trying to sell to that audience, you really don't need Meetly. So don't sign up for an account. Um, you have no use case out of that, right? But if you're a business trying to sell into larger corporations, speak to us, right? So we will speak to that company on behalf of you, try to enable whatever that is possible, and we will try to do that for you. So that's like our thought process behind this whole dilemma. So what I really mean to say is that we are focused on where the problem exists. We know that happens in mainly in bigger corporations. We're talking about at least 400 500 2000 6, something like that in the employee size of companies. So we directly going to them. From there onward, we go back into smaller companies. That's like thought process behind it, right? So if you take one bigger company, they always want to do business with another bigger company, right? Exactly. Exactly. So how can we solve that problem? That's a good problem to solve for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, the audience feels that you're very calm. Like it's almost like you just have this piece of like, we're going to do what we can do today and not focus on maybe the end goal. And I think that everybody here could take some lessons from that. You seem to be very focused on the here and now. You're planning for the future, but you're not stressed of like, we have to make this happen today. And so it's not putting pressure on your product to give yourself time to grow and evolve how it's supposed to.
For sure, for sure. I think if you could take anything from our interview, like this 1 hour, take this piece of advice. Try to do something tomorrow, rather you try to implement something in 5 years' time, because tomorrow is more achievable than 5 years. You know, that's the more tangible. That's the more tangible hope to have. So try to do something tomorrow and work for it today. You have to work for it today, otherwise you're not going to achieve it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So I saw that Meadly presented at, was it Microsoft headquarters in Singapore? Is that correct? So what did you like learn from that experience? Did you get to meet some cool people? Tell me about that experience.
First of all, Microsoft is a cool place to go if you could visit one time, right? Good food everywhere, vending machines, computers on the table everywhere. So cool experience. In an entrepreneur's perspective, somewhere that I would admire. If you could spend some time to go there, please visit one time in your life to a bigger corporations. And even if you're early stage founder. So but the experience behind us going to Meetly going to Microsoft is primarily to understand how their systems works, and if there could be any business process that we could plug into, and how faster can we get it done. So their team were very supportive. I met with a few people, importantly Michael, head of startups for Asia in Singapore. Um, they connected us with entire Microsoft ecosystem that we could benefit. We work with their teams. I should thank Nia as well. Been amazing partner, sharing all the resources we need. Asking the status time to time. So there are very dedicated people working on solving tiny problems. Most people think like, hey, Microsoft is solving big problems. No, they're trying to solve simple problems. Google is same, Facebook is same, right? Every other person on the earth is same. So that was like my learning from it. Company could be big, but you had to solve tiny problems,
Yeah.
that could
Everybody
be.
has their little role solving the
Ex-
problem within the big ecosystem.
exactly. It's been a journey with them. I admire that a lot.
That's awesome. And this kind of segues to my next question, but what is early feedback you're getting from the product, and what are some like early successes of companies that have used Meedly in their corporation?
Perfect. So we have worked with multiple corporation companies at this point. We have piloted the product. The last time when we checking it, we had like 10,000 users, and product works smoothly. We are onboarding customers, we are onboarding users. New things comes into the platform. Every day trying to maintain that we have a good server that could back up everything. You know, uh, Traction's being really good, feedback's been getting really good, and most companies are very open to work with us. Turn out really pretty working really well for us right now. They see the problem that we are trying to solve, which is really rare. In most cases, most companies try to embed in within the organization themselves. That's how most things work. But lucky enough for Meetly, they are very agile to work with us. So we recently signed few important partnerships, allowing us to cater multiple corporation companies over the next 8 to 12 months. Been getting, I would say, a bit of traction at this point.
Good. That's awesome. Because in the beginning, and it was cool to me, is that a lot of I feel like entrepreneurs get so passionate about the product that they're blind to what, like you said, people don't even want the product. You almost went into, because your experience, you went into it of like, let me just post it, see what people think, and you've almost built the product from scratch from the feedback you're getting. Because rather than let me tell what the market wants, what does the market need, and then I can make a product from that. It's really cool to see.
I
Yeah.
should actually add something to that conversation. I think very important, if any other founders looking. Sometimes what I do, even before I implement something, I would just
Mhm.
reach out to whoever could be my user. I would be like, hey, I built this for fantastic tool. Right? Would you be willing to have a look at it? And then I present it. But by that time, at that time, I didn't even have the tool most of the time. I just an
Right.
idea.
Right.
It's my idea. Try to see if these people actually going to be using before I spend my
Sure.
time trying to spend time to build it. So most of the
Right.
time that was my use case. But now we are a bigger company. Now we have the resources. We don't have to do the
Sure.
same techniques we did. But if you're a stage founder, do the same thing.
Yeah. Just hey, I'll sell you the dream. Do you want to buy it? If you do, give me
Exactly.
3 months. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Give me. That's really cool. The roadmap for Meadly, I know that it is a day by day, but is there any milestones that, maybe not financial milestones, but is there any milestones as a company you would like to hit in terms of a user base, or where you maybe by December? Could you explain those milestones?
Sure. So for me, it's just pretty simple. Then again, we are a very, very, problem-centric company. We are more focused on how can we solve the tomorrow's problem. That's pretty much behind my philosophy, behind everything I do. Milestones are everybody has bigger milestones. When you want to start a company, hey, I want to be the next billion-dollar company, next, multi-billionaire, right? And I want to run yachts. I want to own, palaces everywhere. That's like the man's dream, right? But we don't run like that at Meetly. Meetly is all about whatever my crazy ideas are, whatever other person's facing tomorrow, and how can we solve it. So for us, it's just very simple. We just want to reach out to one company every single day, pitch them, try to onboard all the employees into Meetly over a course of maybe 2 to 3 months time, trying to secure a larger base of employees who will be on the platform. So when someone else wants to schedule a meeting, maintain records of those meetings, it makes it easier, even if you're not a paid customer of Meetly, right? So that's why I said we are not focused on how much money can we make tomorrow, right? We are not really focused on that, because the value of Meetly comes in when more people are there on the platform. So we make solid partnerships with people who could drive us to that vision, hoping we will get there somehow. But for us as a company, we are focused on tomorrow. We are not focused on what could be achieved 1 year later on, 2 years later on. We are not. We are growing the company. For example, let's say you are a 2000 plus employee company working with 5 different time zones, maybe 10 companies. We are focused on those 10 companies. How can we enable a one-to-one end-to-end communication? So that's like a problem for us to solve.
Yeah, and that again, it goes into this. It's like what to build. You've mentioned partnerships a lot. Like I think a lot of times it's identifying how are we going to go to market with this. How are we going to go to market with Meetly's great product now? How do we get it in the hands of these big companies? How are you? I guess how are you developing these partnerships and relationships, and how are you building these systems to continually incorporate new big companies or new small companies? How are you going to market with that?
One of the biggest challenges for any entrepreneur, like how are you going to go to the market? Why would someone be convinced so that they could use your product, right? That's we faced those issues back in the time, but we always had something interesting. What we do generally, we try to get away from whatever the value we are getting right now. We have bigger visions. We as a company, of course, we like to be the tool that people use to schedule meetings, manage meetings data. And what we're really trying to do, go after the people in the same vision, connecting and making us access to those types of companies, and that we could be value to those types of companies, where ultimately they're going to bring us much more value through the partners they have, right? So we do direct selling at Meedly too. We pitch into companies, but it's a long term play for us, like for you sort of close a corporate company in your market. That's a long play, so we always try to go through the.
Yeah, is it really just like you're finding companies that align with your value, your missions, and like you said, really who you can solve the biggest problem for? And then when you get those meetings scheduled, I guess the conversation is probably a lot easier because some people go after prospects who it's like prospecting is that they need this product and they really don't need it, and so it's hard to sell that. But if you're presenting, I guess, if you're prospecting really good to specific companies and just have a long-term game, I mean, that's the way to do it.
You remember, is it like I said, like the last time also, we are problem centric. Like we're trying to understand the problem, whoever faces it. We know even when we speak to the partners, they have the same problem, because they are in the end of the day communicating with bigger corporations trying to sell their products. Right? So we know they have the problem. So we utilize those and we push it into them. And hey, we are solving this problem that your company already having, right? So if you let us be a partner, we could solve this problem for you and your partners too, because they are facing the same issues. So that's what we are more focused.
So as your company, as you grow your company, more revenue comes in. Where do you see yourself? This is a kind of a scaling question. I think it's really interesting, but how do you see yourself allocating resources to what is the most efficient way to allocate resources at this time for Meadly?
Really a good question, I would say, right? Scaling is one of the factors, and it's really what angle you're looking at. It depends. Are you going to scale based on number of companies, but you will still have only the top management on those companies using Meetly? Or are you going to scale the company in such a way you're going after companies and you're implementing Meetly into each and every employee's email address, and they will have access to Meetly, and then at the same time you take that pack of companies, you're going to go after smaller companies. So there are different ways for us to scale the company: user base, revenue base, it's just really how we're going to maintain that, and also what type of different features utilizes our resources that consumed by our end users in the end of the day, that we could reduce our burn, monthly burn financially. So those are different parameters for us to look at, and I think we are even if we are 2 year old company, I think we are at the early stage of understanding that, you know so I wouldn't really want to solve a problem for us that does not exist yet. So we are trying to be, trying to go after the same mission we had, going after more companies, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, in a week time. And then we understand that, I think for most founders, if you speak with the, I think you're trying to grow a YouTube audience, right? So if I ask you, like, how are you going to grow the audience, obviously you can go after many CEOs, your value proposition is very solid, they would come. But how are you going to increase the people who would be watching your YouTube? So there are different tactics that you can use for this. You can run email campaigns for this. Say, I'm doing this. You can run, if you have money to spend, you can do paid campaign, which I do not advise any founder, right? And then there are so many other ways. You can be a part of different communities. You just try to scale it, right? But for most founders, they don't have strategies to this, right? They don't understand the smaller things first, so they could go on, that fractional, scalable model in their business. So we had to figure out the smaller things first, understand your parameters of the business. We understand our parameters really well. We know which has to be, increase and decrease in order for us to go in balance. So
Well, it's definitely not to. I think an early stage founder is like throwing money at a problem is probably the worst thing you can do. It's like, we're not, getting clients. We're not doing this. Let's just throw money at a problem and see if it, happens. When you're too early in the company, but you're saying is understand the systems, understand what's going on, and then you can slowly tweak accordingly. Like the knobs, one to turn up, and then
your particular scenario as a founder is not to solve problems. Your particular scenario as a founder is to understand parameters that are needed to solve a problem. When you understand that parameter, that's what you need to pitch to the user, that's what you need to pitch your investor, right? When you understand your own game, it's easier for you to beat even bigger companies, right? Because there's always one way to scale something. There's always a way. There's always one way to scale any company. Most companies would deny it, but that's the truth. And most bigger companies don't want smaller founders to understand those parameters very early, so that they could bargain in the investment rounds. You have to be really smart at this, trying to understand your own parameters for your own business. And importantly, I think most people misunderstood this, like, misconception of, like, I'm building a startup. No, you are not building a startup. You're building a business, right? Your particular scenario of building a startup versus building a business are two different dimensions. If you are going building a startup, that's a different mindset. Good to have a coffee, have a beer in the bar with your customer. Go home, he's not gonna pay. But if you're more focused on building a business, right? Now I have to take care of my financials. I have to take care of my employees. I have to take care of working hours. I have to put more time trying to solve that problem, so I don't have to worry about scaling, go to market, all those things. So that's more important for being a founder.
That's super powerful. And I guess really we're to wrap up here, what does the future of meetings look like in 10 years? And how do you think businesses will evolve using tools like yours? I'm a business 10 years later. What does it look like using Meedly?
you know 10 years ahead, I really don't know what's going to look like, uh, right? But it's good to dream. It's good to dream as a founder. Hey, I'm going to build a company, that we go into VR, AR, where you simply use Meetly to schedule different, or maybe could be 10 different tools. But we are very, then again, we are very, very focused on what needs to be solved tomorrow for us. and I'm always driving towards that. Whatever that needs solved, we are focused. But I think, just to answer your question, really, as a founder, as a kid mainly, right? I'm 27 years old, by the way, but I have that spirit in me, like, every single time. I mean, you could be age, but your thought process has to be updated every single day. So for us, we always dream of, I think most people are going to be doing meetings, their work, wearing that AR glass, in their workplace, where they dramatically process anything, however they want to look it like. The difference is really, you are in a workplace. Not everyone could afford for a good table, have a good setup, good microphone, but everybody could afford for a good VR headset, right? And I think the future of work is also going to be that, where you're not really going to an office. You're located wherever you are located, and you could be connected virtually through those technologies coming in. I think AI is going to be a massive impact in that. At the same time, I believe AR and VR are the next big thing. uh,
Yeah, for productivity, where people are you think people are like be in offices and doing meetings, all that, just within their headset coming into work? Like, do you think that's a reality?
I think the interactive touch is not there on VR yet, even if you have those, vibes, vibrations and all that. But interactive touch is something they're trying to implement. And I think young companies must never focus on that. Let bigger companies handle those APIs. Our particular case of the problem is to utilize those, tools to implement something that everyone could benefit. So interactive touch, multi voices, all those features are yet to come. Even actually at this time, I'm actually working on one research, trying to figure out that someone, I'm not going to use that research obviously, but someone else is going to use it at the end of the day. Actually, Meetly was formed out of a research idea. It was a research idea presented in Silicon Valley, so yeah. So we are more focused on the education. We are focused on, how can we technically understand the problems that needs to be solved. If we see something, and we just try to articulate that and give it to someone who could solve it, because if there's a better opportunity that someone else can solve that problem, everyone is going to benefit. That's how I think. So we try to do that every single day. Even if we are not going to solve it at the highest scale, we give it to someone who could. So
Hmm. Well, I have no further questions, Shenal. Plug your company. Where can they find you, your company, and all the great things like that?
sure. You can go to meedly.com, meedly, meedly.com.
And we'll
Simply
put it
go,
on screen.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And simply wherever you see it in the screen, so probably somewhere over here, go into the meedly.com. Everything is there. You can go to features page. You can see we have YouTube videos, how it works. We have partner videos, how the partnerships works. We have how the technology works, how our API technologies and, AI technologies works. You can also go to the meedly.com/sign up, and then you can hit and continue with your existing workplace account like Microsoft or Google. They are pretty much integrated with that. So very easy to do. If you have any questions, you guys can also reach out to us via email. You can write me at shenal@meedly.com, or you can go to our contact us page. Also, find different resources there as well.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate your time. I think we're going to have many more discussions in the future. Maybe
For
we can
sure.
have you back on when we got more progress. Things are going even further. And I just really appreciate your insight. I think it
Sure,
was super.
I wish you all the best. I think what you're doing is something really people need. They can utilize your platform to, speak to the people in their need. Utilize that sort of video technologies to, interact
Yeah.
with other people. So thank you very much for doing this, and also inviting me to your great work. There will be more coming in between us, which we discuss. And
Absolutely.
let's wish for that. Thank you, Asi. I appreciate that.